Yes, hello, folks. Welcome along once again to another edition of the Irish Rally Podcast Live. Yes, here we go. Another edition. More madness, as the fella said. Plenty to get through. We're going live. We like the old adrenaline rush, the same as the boys in the cars do. But Wexford Rally last weekend, Tour of the Sperrins last weekend. Plenty of lads over in Spain competing. So we've a nice bit to get through, and we've a couple of guests to talk us through all the action over the next hour or so. The episode is in association with DC Electrical and Mechanical Service. We thank Derek for getting in touch with us there and helping us out with a bit of sponsorship for this episode. It does help us keep the show on the road, lads. There's a bit of cost in it. There is a few overheads and all, and bills to be looked after. So we do appreciate when lads do get in touch. And if you want to get in touch with us, irishrallypodcast@gmail.com is our email address. You can tweet us. You can get us on Instagram. You can get us on Facebook as well at Irish Rally Pod. Right, so let's bring in our first guest, Mr. Gary Bradley of Wexford Motor Club. How are we doing, Gary?
Not bad, Kevin. Thanks for having us on this evening.
Yeah, well, listen, thanks for jumping on. I know you're busy and you're trying to enjoy probably a little bit of downtime after a crazy enough weekend. But you must be delighted, first of all, to that the event actually went and happened, because I was touching base with you last year and there was big plans in place for a rally which never got to go ahead. This year, 12 months on, thankfully we're looking at a more positive story.
Yeah, look, we tried. I know it didn't come to a head there last year, but we tried as much as we could to try and get the event up and running last year, and it was looking very positive until kind of the last moment, and the rug was pulled from underneath us. But I suppose we did a lot of the backbone work last year, and we kind of ran with something similar this year. The team were on board again, and I suppose it paid dividend in what we had the weekend. A very successful event, and I suppose it's just goes to show all the planning kind of worked out in the end.
Would it be fair to say that it was a completely different blueprint? There was a lot of things, that were planned for last year that didn't happen this year. Like, I suppose having the one-day event and the location and where it was ran out of, like, there was a lot of new stuff happening, and it did work quite well by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Look, even the one-day format is completely new to us in Wexford. Like we normally have our two-day event. We were lucky enough, I suppose, just after COVID to get the site in Albatross there, McDonald Brothers and Sons. We ran a rally sprint, and we were able to utilise that then for the service park and for scrutiny, check-in, rally office. Everything is quite a big site, but that also meant moving to a new location down in Ross, which we haven't ran out of in decades. I don't remember personally the last event being run over us. So there was definitely a lot of new doors open, or new avenues and new challenges, and that was without COVID. So yeah, definitely a different rally than what we've experienced here in Wexford before.
So to give a bit of an insight to viewers and listeners that, we mightn't have explored actually on the podcast at all, the canvassing side of that then, I mean, typically over the years when you have established routes and established areas and the stages are quite similar, you're knocking on the same doors and people for the most part are obliging. Was that much of a difficulty this time around?
Uh, I suppose I'll go back to the first rally, Kevin, because there were almost identical stages as what we were going to run last year, and we were very, very nervous last year going out and canvassing. I went and was doing the canvassing myself with a couple of the guys, and the feedback we got on the door was absolutely phenomenal. And it was more than the rally, and it was about just coming back to normality for a lot of people. It wasn't the motorsport. Some of them, they were very interested in what it was, but were starting at the very start, telling them what cars do and when roads close and everything. But they were just delighted to get back. A lot of them were disappointed when we couldn't run last year. We went back and we did the canvas to thank them for their time and did a few bits and bobs, which paid dividend this year, because our canvas this year was very, very easy. We went back, and the minute they seen the club shirt coming to the door, they were delighted. They were, I'm ringing the cousins and ringing the neighbours, were coming down upon the barbecue for the weekend. So despite being in a new area, we were very, very welcomed by all the residents. It was a very easy rally to run, I suppose, when you look at the residents part of it. And look, we were only running 2 stages 3 times, which we'd normally be running 5 or 6 stages. So a little bit less work on the canvas. And like you said, new area, but they were more than welcoming for the whole thing. So all good.
That's what you want. So another thing that was very much complimented beforehand, and it's something maybe you give a bit of insight in from feedback you would have got afterwards, was the close proximity of the stages, which is obviously a big thing among competitors. Lads lose the mind when there's big distances
Mhm.
between the stages and stuff. But he had that fairly well waxed, and it's something that was very much, look forward to beforehand. So the feedback I take, it was good on that front too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, well, with COVID, we were trying to bring in down the mileage. We didn't want it spread all over the county as well. So that was part of the planning from last year. And when we came back to the stages, it was, I don't know offhand now, it was probably 5, 6 kilometres, I think, from the end of stage two back to the stage one again for the loop and all. And both of them were only I don't know, what is it, 7, 8 kilometres from your us where the service was. So coming in and out, the shakedown stage we had was actually part of the second stage run backwards. So, we weren't sending lads all over the county. Uh, it was a very, very close loop. I did recce myself in about 3.5 hours, I think. And that was 2 stages run 3 times in the shakedown, which is, very, very efficient, I suppose, way of doing it, Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and using that bit of a loop, I suppose one possible drawback is that you're closing off a road, the same road, a part of it anyway, 2 days in a row, which can be a
Mhm.
challenge, but
Yeah.
obviously not the case in this event. Like,
No, no. Look, we went to the few of the locals down there, which would be very supporting of the motor club, and a lot of our club members know some of them personally, and there was absolutely no hassle. We could have closed it for a week. Honest to God, they were that welcoming. So, um, they wanted it and they couldn't wait for it and they were excited. And that was shown by the crowds in the ditches and even the volunteers that were helping from the local area. A lot of the people from the areas we canvassed actually come out to marshal for us on the weekend. And, I'll marshal at my own gate or can I do up at the cross, this kind of local thing, which is a great help to the club as well.
yeah, and that prevents a lot of headaches because marshals do be thin on the ground a lot of times. So when the locals are helping out as well, sure, like it's that's the icing on the cake altogether.
Ah, it is, and they have local knowledge as well. Like they're able to make the phone call to the farmer down the field. Is there any chance we can go cut across it? Rather than just
Mm.
coming in. So it's great to have little bit of local knowledge, and I suppose you feel more welcome in an area when the locals are the ones helping you out and trying their best to. Simple things. One guy there we rang. He's doing the milk run, and he changed the milk run from a Sunday. All they ran they've got an extra lorry in. They ran from Saturday evening the whole way through to Sunday morning, so they didn't have to do any work for the Sunday. And this was before we rang them. So when they know they're coming, they can be quite helpful as well. So
That's great to hear that, and lads are obliging because we've heard horror
yeah,
stories down through the years. With lads
oh,
driving
we've
down
we've
life
had the horror
stages, and
stories too, Kevin. We've had them. Don't
you
worry.
know,
So
you know
we
yourself,
take the
like
good with
so.
the bad. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
it,
Very
yeah.
good.
It's all a part of it. So the stages themselves, I suppose, did provide challenges, and I think stage one in particular, lads were like, there was a few dodgy enough sections in that,
Of
going by
course.
the feeds afterwards or whatever, and all the feedback really. But lads did get the grips with it, I suppose, eventually. But sure, as you know yourself, lads get brave the odd time as well on these stages. I think to have it known the second and third time. But
Yeah, yeah.
what did you think about that yourself?
Yeah, look, I suppose Sunday morning it was wet and there was an awful lot of leaves on the stage. There must have been quite a big wind. Um, actually going to the marsh meeting point myself, I had to travel one of the stages from my own home place, and just the amount of leaves and twigs and things in the road. And when I got to the meeting point, I got the remarks back from the stage commanders as well. And sure, everyone was a little bit cautious on the first run. We had big numbers coming back in after the first loop. Where you'd normally have lads on a big push trying to set stage times. But I think everyone were cautious. Um, we didn't lose any stages actually all over the whole Sunday. I think there was one blockage that stopped about 6 cars, but other than that, we were all good. Uh, the second loop, it started to dry up. Traditional Ireland, we had the sun, we had the rain, we had the wind, everything all in the one day. First loop, very wet and slippy. Second loop, it was really dry where the sun was able to get to the road. So when you had trees on one side of the road, one half of the road was dry, one half was wet. So you end up driving off the racing line just to get dry grip. Some lads were brave with tyre choices, and I think that's what made the difference in lads who were able to win the classes and position well. I know Josh Moffat and Andy Hayes had a good tyre selection, and I think that's what catapulted them to get the win overall, was the correct tyre choice on the second loop of the day. So, and then there was intermittent showers then for the third loop. So you have little bits of everything, and a bit of luck, I suppose, involved for a lot of crews as well.
Ah, sure. Look, that's what you want. It makes it exciting as well. But like, you got the contrast there and the choice of tires and stuff. And then I can't remember what competitor was at the end of the stage. Like we had to go with two slicks on the front, and that wasn't ideal given what was the
Yeah,
terrain you're describing. Like,
yeah. No, it was almost impossible. Like, look, it's Wexford in the autumn. Like you're going to have mud on the road and wet, and it's, you know, everything you expect it going to be, and then you go out and it's bone dry then on a second loop, and then you're back to the wet for the third one. Like, I don't think there is a correct tyre choice. You know, a correct tyre choice on a class 14 thing and a correct tyre choice on an R5 or a class 1 or 2, or, you know, one could be on slicks and the other one could be on wets, and it could be the right tyre choice for them. So yeah, look, there was definitely lads not comfortable and on a big push, but sure, that's what rallying is, and there was plenty of tails hanging out in the ditches and things like that. But that's all part of the fun as well, I suppose.
It is, and you know, even this conversation, that's a conversation we were absolutely, you know, dreaming of for the last, I don't know how long, to be even talking about this, like, do you know what I mean? And
Sure,
even if you once
I
thought it
think
didn't look likely, let's be honest about it.
about 14 months ago, you were trying to get me to come on here to talk about the Wexford Rally that was going to be, and we're waiting 14 months just for yourself and myself to have this chat. So, yeah, look, it's good to be back, and there
That's
was
because you're busy
lots
now
of
as well,
people.
Gary, now. Let's be honest about it. It wasn't because of the rally knock.
And yeah, well, yeah, there was a few other things as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, look, it's hard to get around to everything, but no, look, it's great to be back. I think the crowds in the ditches showing it. You know, I think the only issue we had was the amount of spectators. None of them were in the wrong places. None of them did anything bad. We're all doing exactly what was required of the marshals, and like we had over double the amount of marshals that was required in the safety plan, and we were still barely able to contain the spectators. They were just kilometres long on the ditches, which is, you know, it's not something you'd normally see in a normal year of rallying. You know, when you look kind of the Donegals and the Rally of the Lakes and that kind of thing, you know, big crowds up Moll's Gap and all that. That's what we had, you know, in laneways in the middle of Adamstown. Like, so it's definitely the local economy got a bit of a fright. And they were in for 4 in the morning breaking breakfast rolls and still sold out. So,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's good for everyone. No, the supporters, the local economy, local shops, everything. So, all
Is
good.
this kind of like, I won't say a kick in the arse, but is it kind of like a timely reminder the last year and a half, whatever, to spectators who might have lost the draw? I'm not talking about competitors, they'll always have the draw, right? But spectators were like, ah, jeez, I don't know if I bother going to that. And now all of a sudden, bang, they won't miss it because it was taken away from them. Like, it's probably not a bad thing, really, when you put it like that.
Yeah, well, I suppose something comes to me in business, especially, is if something is given for free, it doesn't have a value. We learned this in business the whole time. So if you have a product and you give it away, it's worth nothing. And motorsport is free to watch. So a lot of lads took it for granted that we had it. And I'll go, and you know, after I won't go, I'll go to the next one the next day. If you're after buying your ticket for a concert, it was 50 quid, you'd make sure that you'd go because it'd be
Yeah,
a waste of 50 quid. So they were getting their free show every week. And that's what we had every week. If it wasn't every week, it was every second week in this country. It was, you know, events, 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 events. And then it was stopped. And I think it wasn't until they couldn't go they realised what they were missing or what they
hmm,
were taking for granted in the first place. Like there was a hunger, you could see it like all in Ross, in Escarty, Clonrush, all the times. They were full, you couldn't drive through them. Like, you know, they were from everywhere. So I think absolutely there's a, you know, I was down at Cork 20 there a few weeks ago as well, and the crowds were bananas. Like, so I think they're, you know, maybe realising what they were getting for free and maybe not taking it for granted as much anymore. You
yeah.
know?
I wouldn't mind. There's a nice new bypass down there as well, and the place is still blocked up, so that's not a bad thing. That's a good complaint to have as well on
No, so it's the first
a
time Ross
rally
has blocked
weekend.
up since the bypass went in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
just
know it's
straight
all
through.
good, yeah.
So let's get into the nitty gritty then, Gar. I mean, you know, it was obviously an event of great excitement, but as we always do here on the podcast, and we'll always plan to do, class winners. So do you want to rattle down to the class winners first, and then we'll maybe take the top 10, or wherever you feel comfortable yourself, just to give people a rundown?
Yeah, I just have the class winners jot down there now. Just bear with me now with this because I took it down off the phone before I was talking to you here, Kevin.
Right, right.
I'm away. I'm not in my own office. Yeah, class one is Peter Cohan and Brian Cohan in the Peugeot 106. Class two, Gavin Shield and Ken Blanche in their Fiesta. Class three, Michael Orman and Paddy King in the Civic. Class five then, which was actually fourth overall, was Endo O'Brien and John Butler in the Volkswagen Polo. And just thanks to them as well, they came down for the launch with Wexford Volkswagen race, which is much appreciated. Class 7 was one of our previous winners, Steve Wood and Keith Moriarty in their Fiesta. Local crew then, Brian and Elaine Kerwin. Brian is actually the club secretary, was out in the back wheel drive Peugeot. A great run from them, fair play to him. Chris Lacey and Ryan Power, another Wexford crew out in the Nova, as class 10. 11 then, 11R, a good friend of mine, Billy Nolan, or William Nolan as he's here on this show, and and Evan
That's
out in
very
the twin
formal for
cam.
that lad now.
It is very, very formal for that, but that's what was written down here anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, myself and Billy go back a good few years of drifting and stuff. But he was out in the twin cam putting on a show for everyone. It's great to see him get a class win as well. He's relatively new to the sport. Aaron Brown and Derry Long out in the Civic in 11F, Seamus O'Grady, another Wexford man, out in the Peugeot Class 12, Chris O'Callaghan and Dylan Donoghue in the Mark II for Class 13. Class 14, James Stafford and Andy Kennedy, Wexford crew, previous winners of course. Fifth overall, they actually finished in the event after a shunt on the last run. I think it was for stage 5 or 6. There's a clip of it up online there where they're backwards into a wall. Yeah, Tomas and O'Rourke and Tomas Gallen, another Wexford crew, Class 16 out in the Evo. Class 20 then, Connor Moore and Leo Hector out in the Evo as well. Always the crowd's favourites and very friendly blokes, Wexford lads. In the juniors, Jack Burton and Sean Burton in the Civic. Historics then, I'm going to just name first and second in the historics. Second was Alan Ring out in the Legacy that we all know, the Bat 555 car. Phenomenal car to have down, loads and loads of PR around it all. And I suppose a big talking point of the weekend was one of our lucky late entries that got in, Craig Breen. Himself and Mikey were out. I think the times they had would have put him, I think, 6th overall in the event, which is great to see one of the older cars able to put her up to some of the more modern machinery and R5s. But Craig was down putting on a bit of a show fresh after signing for M Sport. So yeah, all good there. Top 3 then. Daniel Cronin and Shane Buckley in the R5 Fiesta, Marion Evans and Jonathan Jackson in the Polo. And of course, the winners then was Josh Moffat and the ever so popular Beer Nuts, Andy Hayes, Wexford man. It's his first time getting onto the top step of the podium. Delighted for him, absolutely delighted for him. Andy does an awful lot of work for the club in the background. Even with the youth academy things, and when we were going through COVID, there we were trying to plan online navigation things, and Andy was always into the phone. And I don't think lads really see how much he does for the club in the background. You wouldn't think of him as a few drinks in him, but he's quite a shy fella on the front of it. But I'm delighted for him, and I think every club member in Wexford is delighted to see that get that bottle of champagne on the top step of the podium. So fair play to himself and Josh on the win.
Well, like when you win your home event, it is special. Like we see that. I see that firsthand even in Carroll there with Condell and Cody a few years ago. Do you know how much it actually means? Like it means an awful lot when you do finally get
it. Sure, it's everything. Sure, no matter what can be said now, he's the fastest man in Wexford. He can go to whatever club meeting he wants, and he can say whatever he wants to anyone.
And delighted
he's the fastest man in Wexford.
The sounds of things, yeah.
That's it, yeah. I know, and he's a good character as well. But look, he gives as good as he gets, so it's nice to have a bit of a comeback answer from him. Yeah, so
that's what you want.
I'm delighted for him. Yeah.
So can I just talk to you about Breen as well? There's a couple of things actually there just before I do let you go about Breen in particular. I mean, what a late entry. Nice to be able to get him in there at the 11th hour or whatever. And
it is well
the amount of attention it brought. You know what I mean? And good PR as you said, and the car.
Yeah, well, he had a late entry. I suppose excluding Breen, if you look at our reserve list that was published, we think we had. This is off the cuff now, could be wrong. I think there was 3 R5s, 2 Class 14 escorts, 2 Class 13 escorts, and a Class 13 Mark II, and Craig Breen. That was our reserve list.
Yeah.
Like, mother of God, if you had that and the first 10 for your normal year, you'd have a good rally. It just goes to show. Look, we set the precedent at the start of our other rally because we were thinking we're going to have numbers, and it was all paid entries that were in first on time, the whole lot. And then we had it down. Any clubman or anybody had done our event in the last 3 years, then our clubmen they helped, and our clubmen. So, like, our clubmen in Class 1 and 2 cars got into that event before Craig Breen or some of the lads from up the country in an R5. So we are a club, and we're trying to stick to that, which I know it seemed a bit odd sometimes. Some of the lads, when that published, my phone just went bananas, as you can imagine. What in the name of God are them lads doing on a reserve list? But look, the most of them got in, so it was great to see you. And look, Craig, he drew a crowd. He did what he wanted, and I suppose I just want to thank him as well. We asked him about doing the ceremonial start, and he was more than obliging. Came down in the car, took pictures, shook hands. There was kids going around with their heads signed and T-shirts and jumpers and programs and all that. So it's great for the sport, great for the town, and could be a PR for Craig. And happy for him with the result as well. It's nice to see what the old machinery are still able to put up to some of the big boys in the right hands.
Yeah, we saw Liam O'Callaghan mention it again the other day, and he mentioned it previously too. Another lad I want to get on this podcast. I have reached out to him a few times, and maybe we'll get persuaded. He sees you on now, Gary. Mike, come on.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Don't
that's
take him
it.
on for
Yeah,
getting us like get you on.
I could
But
start.
listen,
You get all the normal Joe Soaps that'll come on now after me. Yeah, I'm after leading the way.
but like the thing is, he was talking about having a Group A class and bringing it back. Like, and obviously, legacy and all that now would be in what historic category, aren't they? Like, as
They're
you're
historic. Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
which is crazy. I can't get my head around that. You still think that they're not, that old or whatever. Like, is there anything to be said, I suppose, for making a class specifically for the Group A era, kind of? Again, do you know what I mean?
I think I think there's two things missing in motorsport. Personally, this is not me speaking as director for the Motor Club branch, just my own personal preference. I think an entry level, like we all see, class 11 is probably the most common class, or even juniors at the minute. Where sure the juniors are running gearboxes that a normal man can't afford. You know what I mean? So I think there's something for an entry level class. Let it be whatever it's going to be. I have a mini myself, but just pick it for an example that you run that. You can upgrade the race and upgrade the suspension or something, but it has to be H pattern box standard, where you can go and buy a car for 5 or 6 grand and go out and rally it. And I think the other thing is missing is the nostalgic. How many of them cars of the legacies, and you'd look back to Bertie Fisher era, jeez, lads, the hairs that stand on the back of your neck looking at some of the stuff that's on there. And I think that's massively, all we have to do is look at the historics in Clarny, how much of a crowd it draws. And it's the right crowd, if that makes sense. So it's the people who have money in their pocket and people who have the cars and they respect the cars. And you could put a car show on the day before and you'd pay money to go in and look at these yokes in the museum. Never mind seeing them being trashed around the roads. I think it's a shame to have them locked up in the shed. If I had one, I'd probably lock it in the shed because I'd wreck it. But I'd like to see the lads who are able to afford to go out and give them a good rattle on the road. And I'd love to see you come back out. The Class A stuff, or all the things of yesteryear. Some of the younger lads, well, younger than me anyway, would have never seen them in the last the last decade or that's gone. And it'd be great for them. Look, the smells, the bangs, it's not as fast as some of the new machinery, but there's great excitement on the ditch when you hear it coming and, all that kind of stuff. So,
If
the
you
old
actually
WRC escorts and a whole lot,
exactly, like if you had your eyes closed, it's nearly as special as having your eyes open because, as you said, the noise. You know what I mean? The noise is what resonates,
Yeah.
really.
Look, for me, my first motorsport, I suppose, big memory would have been watching some of the Circuit of Ireland with an uncle of mine, John, and it was the Bertie Fisher era, and it was all them cars, and I was a chap, frightened to live in Harton, when the bangs, you'd hear it go through you, and for a few years after, like, Aim Bowling kind of dominated in Wexford, and there was a few the Metro 6R4s pricing the whole lot, but he was out in the WRC, and the crackles and the bangs, there's nothing like it. And for me, that's the one. And I'd hate to think that my kids wouldn't see that going along. And like the young lad was at the rally the weekend. I don't know what that white car was, but there was some bang over when it passed me. Do you know what I mean? And he'll remember that. Like, it's grand all fives and they go hard, but I suppose they don't be maybe as spectacular sometimes as what some of the other lads. And some of the lads are out to put on a show, not to put in quick times. And that's part of it too. We're not all about just out for the quickest fella. There's a product there for that, but there's definitely a market for the lad who want to come out to see the lad in an Opel Manta or WRC Escort or the Legacies, the Sierra Cosworths. That's I go to see that over some of the stuff all the time. So yeah, I think there's definitely a gap in the market for that, and I'd love to see it come back personally.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So the Youth Academy as well is something that I was planning to talk to you about last year. We didn't really get to talk to you about it, but can you just give us a little bit of an insight into that before I do let you go?
It was 6 years ago now we started the academy. I didn't come from a motorsport background, Kevin, and when I was getting into motorsport, first time I went to Marshall at a rally, I drove to the start line and asked the marshal there, could I do something? And I brought a bib with me. I had no idea. This is before the internet and everything and all that, of course. And I found it quite hard to get correct information, if that made sense. It's kind of, everyone knows the answers, but they all know the answers because they're already involved in the sport. So we created the academy where it was I suppose what we see now is there's a lot of kids with maybe single parents, and the parents just have no idea. And the young lad is at home playing the computer, and he's doing this, that, or other, where he's doing car games, and I've no idea where to go next to him. And the academy was formed. We teach the kids, basic mechanics, obviously the financial part, sponsorship part, and then we put them into carts and race and everything. It's after growing massively over the last few years. Leanne Carroll got involved last year and really took the bull by the horns, and we brought in a new direction. I think it's where we're going to be for the next 10 years or that. We formed a partnership with Tillotson T4 Carts. So now we're linked with themselves for the karting series. Mondello are very good to us with the kids in the rallycross, and we're actually up there next Wednesday with all the kids from 13 up, and they're out in the Mini Coopers on track, and then they're out in the Say setting hot laps, and the winner that gets a drive. So we'll bring them in for the year. Kids have a bit of fun, race around. At the end of the year, all the top seeded drivers, they score points and all in each day they come out, and at the end of the year the top drivers get a works drives with us. It's all fully paid for, so whether it's a kart in junior level or the mini level or in the rallycross, we have our own carts after being good enough to have a few sponsors over the year. So that's basically it. We didn't do it last year. Now we normally bring up to Nicky Cal there, Nigger above NCRS, and we do a workshop up there that's quite good fun. We strip a car and we take it apart and put big bags together and service them, and we do a pit stop challenge every year. The kids are trying to beat NCRS pit crew on changing the four wheels on a rally car. But it's always good fun, kids getting dirty, and for some kids, this is the first time they've ever got oil in their hands. You can imagine they're from different backgrounds and what it may be. So it's great. From kids from 8 to 18 years, I think from next year, probably 20 quid to join for the year, and then there's maybe 20, 30 euro per day, depending on what we're doing. And I suppose it's 30, 40 kids there each day. Just a wordy point I was only talking about the other day. Our second race meeting this year was up in Kiltark with the kids, and they're out in the rental carts. And first, second, and third, I think, had a bit of a gap over the next kids. And from 4th to 19th, we're separated by 0.9 of a second. So it just goes to show how close the racing is up there, and it's all good fun. There's no, I suppose they probably learn more off each other than they learn off me, but sure, that's all part of racing too. They form friends for life, so it's all good, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea with fair play, and that's the way lads should be thinking. Even in terms of getting information to enter into rallying yourself as an adult, is important, because a lot of lads wouldn't know a lot of that, and
Absolutely.
some good things have happened in the last couple of years to educate lads. That's another benefit of the last year and a half.
We ran the rally sprint there in Albatross when was that? 4th July, and I think we had 3 of our youth academy members there competing in their own cars. And these are lads who probably wouldn't, like one, Jack Byrne, he's doing the circuit race and STs, and he's after doing Genettas and doing a few things, and Jack is a great ambassador. He actually won the academy in the first year, and then he did a bit of karting, then he went into rallycross, then he did circuit racing, and previous to that, kind of Jack's big thing was, look, when I turn 16, I'll sit into the rally car with my dad, and didn't look at these other avenues. And now, he's working as a driving instructor above Mondello while he's still in school, so it's, after opening a lot of things up, and Jack is, he's a great ambassador for exactly what we're all about. But I won't say all of our winners, but probably 70-80% of the people who are after winning the academy have went on to progress in motorsport with their own, cars, whatever it may be. And even for more, they haven't won it, but they got in on the, the first step on the ladder, and they progressed from there. So, yeah, I suppose just an open book for parents to ask some of the silly questions, and for kids to meet new friends. So. It's all good.
Sure it is. One last comment before I let you go. Sean Keown says, a fantastic day's rally and great buzz back on the ditches. Well done to all involved. Thanks for getting in touch. If you want to get in touch, lads, just drop us a message underneath the live post on Facebook and YouTube. No hassle at all. We'll read it out. We always like that bit of interaction too. Good, bad, or indifferent. We don't shy away from comments. Gary, sure, any last comments before we let you go?
No, thanks for going easy on me, Kev. I was waiting for you to throw an absolute howler of a question in there that I'd have bad coverage all of a sudden and I'd have to go off.
No, see, we need to get you on a second time, so we don't do it on the first appearance.
Right.
as my next guest will know, he's waiting there in the green room. So listen, Gary, we'll say goodbye. Thanks a million, and well done on a great event. All right.
Thanks, Kevin, and well done on the podcast. It's great to have something like this that we can look back at and wish all the best in the future.
Thanks a million, Gary. Right. Really appreciate it. Gary Bradley there of Wexford Motor Club. Now let's bring in the 2021 Bogrady Insurance Northern Ireland Rally Champion, Mr. Johnny Greer. How are we, Johnny?
That's all right, Kev. Yourself?
You're flying it. Great to have you on here again. Every time I have you on, you're after winning something.
Listen,
this time's the championship.
Must be you then, Kev.
I don't know, but that Crawford's not knocking around, so I don't know what the crack is. Although I did see him, I did see Crawford. I think he's kind of mixed up with your team there, is he?
Yeah,
In
you
the
would have.
photo.
You probably
Yeah.
seen him there's a bit of a photo at the end of all of us at the
Yeah.
ramp. So yeah, he's never far away. So he's been great for years with me. He's always been there in the background, sort of doing all the work and getting none of the credit. So yeah, it's him and my dad have been very friendly for years. So the two of them have always sort of supported me very well throughout the year. So yeah, it's great to have those people behind you. You can't really go far without them.
Yeah, he was ready to have his look come on the photo. To be fair to him now, he was thrilled. But come here, I want to say well done first of all joking aside. That's a great achievement. So that's your second time. I think 2017 was the first time, yeah?
Yeah, 17 was the first in the DS3, R5, and then this year in the C3. So it's good to have them in two different Citroen models. So it's always good a good thing for the CV.
So I thought it was about the game plan. You knew going in beforehand it had to be a kind of calculated, measured drive. Do you feel it was that? Did you take a few risks in the middle of it? Did you have to try and struggle to concentrate because you knew what you had to do? You did it. Now you're champion.
Yeah, probably the first stage was the most difficult one, to try and to know where to sit, or know what sort of how much risk to take, because really we hadn't been in the car on closed road before, so we really didn't know where our pace would be compared to other guys. And I think before the rally, there was no. I think it's what Mike Tyson always said: everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face. So that was kind of the idea, was just to go with it and see where we ended up at the end of the first stage. And the first stage was quite tricky, very slippy from start to finish, even though the road was dry, but just very, I don't know where, just greasy or oily. Just the whole stage was just very, very hard for everybody. And we got to the end of it and the time was relatively competitive. So we thought, right, from here on, this is the way we go. This is the sort of the pace we drive at from here on in. And that's pretty much what we've done. And it just worked out for the best in the end of the day. Then there was no real drama, but it was frustrating probably from my side. If you wanted to go and stretch the legs a bit in the car, but you knew at the same time you didn't want to take any massive risks, because all you needed was a missed braking point or a slide wide, and that'll be the whole thing over. So it had to find a happy medium. But lucky enough, the first stage went well, and then everything got a lot easier from there on.
So like how we mentioned Kirsty before and her influence. So she's obviously very measured in this kind of environment, as we spoke about before, and probably important for you as well. I mean, was she telling you to push a bit? Was she telling you to slow a bit, or did you kind of know yourself a little bit as well, deep down?
Not really. I think we've been competing together long enough now that we sort of know each other's sort of game plan. So there's no hassle that way. I think I sort of prefer to be kind of left alone a wee bit, to do my own thing. So that's usually what happens. I mean, she will step in if you think you're doing something a bit silly, but there's no real need for it now. I think we trust each other enough now to do our own thing. And I always find that the less said about it, the better. I sort of prefer to keep things fairly quiet on the road sections and things, just to keep the focus a wee bit better. And that's the way it's worked up until now. So hopefully it keeps working out from going into the future as well.
Yeah. So obviously Callum Devine went and won the Tour of the Sperrins. Like, that guy's on some streak at the moment. We did try to get Callum on for a chat here tonight as well. He's busy, so hopefully in future we'll get on for another one. But what a rich vein of form, in fairness, like.
Yeah, it's great to see him getting the results now. He had a difficult start to the season in the European Championship, but I mean, we all knew from 2 years ago, really, when he started to show real good pace in the Tarmac Championship, that he was going places. And I say it's great to see him getting a better reward for all the hard work he's done. So it's good for us as well. Like, him coming back from the ERC to do these rounds is great for everybody. It puts a guy of his caliber come back to do those rallies is fantastic for everybody. It helps you gauge where you are as well. So it's good to see.
Yeah, definitely raises the bar, in fairness. So what we'll do, Johnny, is I'm going to, obviously we have a good bit to go through, so I'll run down through the top 10 first, then we'll go through the class winners. But Niall Henry, Dean O'Sullivan, 10th, 9th, Stuart Biggerstaff and Anthony Nestor. Anthony Nestor obviously being a good friend of us here on the podcast. Stephen Wright, outgoing champion, I think, Johnny? Yeah? Am I right?
Yeah, he was Yeah, he was the 2019 champion. So obviously with no 2020, he was the reigning champion. So
myself and Liam Moynihan 8, David Bogie and John Rowan in 7th, Joe McGonigal and Kieran Gainey 6th, Gary Jennings, Rory Kennedy 5th, Pat Hurst and Damien Connolly 4th, yourself and Kirsty obviously 3rd, Desi Henry and Niall Byrne 2nd, and then Callum Devine and Brian High winners. So, like, I'm just looking at it there again, and it's something I would have looked at, and just to bring it up, like 49 seconds is all you were off the lead. So, like, you were reminding yourself, but you weren't babying along either, as the fella said. So that's one thing, just to bring to people's attention there in terms of the times and all. Class winners then. So historic Richard Hall, Declan Campbell, Group N, Seamus Goodfellow and Joel McFarlane. Class 3, Philip White and Brian Rowan. Brian Rowan is a guy I know quite well. We thought, and he actually might be still joining us. We sent him the link. I think he's under a bit of pressure. But himself and Philip White, I think, won the junior championship. So well done to both of them, it must be said too. And also, taking Class 3 on the day. Class 4, Jody McManus, there's Sherlock. Moving on to Class 5, that's Ian McGuigan and Michael Moran. Class 6, Jason Black, Carl Egan in the Starlet. Beautiful car, love that car in fairness. David Bogie with Class 7 honours alongside John Rowan. Class 8, Andrew Bustard and Kenny Bustard. And then Class 9, Kevin Bradley, Brendan McElhenney. Yourself, obviously, Class 10. Class 11, then Callum and Brian. So that's the full rundown on the class winners. So, at the start of the year, Johnny, we didn't think this was going to be the last round of the championship. Unfortunately, it is. So, you obviously celebrate a bit the weekend, but what's next? What are we looking at now? Like, are we just looking at downtime, or is there another plan in place for something this year, or are we waiting off till next year?
Yeah, well, we're sort of looking at the options here at the minute. The sort of next one on the list is probably the Ulster. With the BRC guys coming over, and that'll be a good opportunity to go and get another bit some more road experience in the car and stuff like that. But yeah, we looked at the Ulster as a event to do even before Tyrone Stage got cancelled. We sort of looked at towards the end of the year, that would be one we'd like to go and try our hand at. So probably that, and then after that, if things work out well, we've looked at sort of Killarney Historic and things like that. So that's why I was listening to yourselves and Gary there talking about the Group A area. I was sort of nodding ahead in the background. So, but yeah, we're sort of thinking that I'd be all on for that, because obviously we have a CR ourselves, which we do a bit of competing in. So I'm all on for that. So yeah, that's the plan really for the rest of the year then, if all that works out. But I'd say hopefully it all does come together, but we'll just have to wait and see.
And you have made a few appearances in that beautiful automobile, haven't you? Or have you? Your name's definitely on the side of it anyway.
Yeah. I've done Killarney in the car twice now.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
The first one, 2018, we had quite a good run in the car that was just kind of really finished on the lead up to the event. So we'd done no testing on anything in the car, and we got through the event. I think we're 5th overall, and first in the FIA class. So that was a real result. And then 2019, we went back for a bit of a better attack at the rally, and we're running 3rd, and then the time belt snapped on the road section, so that was us out of the event. So it's I think it's the true Sierra experience. So it was. It's usually they're quite temperamental. So
yeah.
That's I love the cars. I think I was really surprised. We had this idea to build the car and get the car running again, and sort of when the opportunity came upon us, I was really eager to do it, because Group A is what I remember. From my first memories of Irish rallying was always Fishers, McKinstry's. My dad was competing in a Group A Sierra at the time. That's my time. That's my era as such. I really missed all the Mark II stuff. I'd never really got onto it at all. Never really warmed to it. The Group A era was my early memories, and that's what I'm all about. The experience was fantastic. I thought the car was really, really good. Obviously it doesn't have the same handling as the R5s do, but the noise and the power and everything else in the car is just brilliant. So I really look forward to get back out again.
Yeah, and if it does become a class, I mean, one of the possible drawbacks which has been mentioned is parts, and how hard it might be to get parts for some of these cars. Like, is that something you would have encountered as a difficulty, perhaps?
Yeah, it was at the start, but again, you're just learning. Again, there is people all around the place. There's people in Europe, especially, are making new parts for these cars, and it's just a case of, I think it's a case of, if the people get the cars up and running, the people will be there to supply the parts. But if there's no customers, there's going to be no supply. So I think there is a growing movement, I think, now, where people are trying to get these cars up and running, and the part supply is coming to meet them. I think hopefully it will get to the stage where the parts are easy to get. I know certainly we have issues with some stuff to get for the Cosworths and stuff, but you can just see every so often that more and more people are coming into the market with new products, that can replace the ones you have. So, you can pretty much buy everything off the shelf for a Mark II now, and that wouldn't have been the case if the people hadn't rallied the cars. So I think the more people get into the cars, the better chance there will be to get the parts.
Now, so this brings the burning question then. So if we do have a class, a Group A class, we'll say next year, or the year after, or the year after that, what does Johnny Greer do? Do you stay, competing in the class you're kind of in around now, or is there temptation there to say, geez, wouldn't mind a belt at this? And could you see, look, you're not going to see a turn in the tide, right? This is not going to be something that will win you a Tarmac Championship, say, right? But what if a few lads started actually trickling over to that, saying, just I wouldn't mind a bit of that. And next thing, all of a sudden, it's literally deja vu. And all the big guns are coming over here. Like, would it be a consideration, or is that just a ridiculous comment?
I think the way the historics are going. I mean, like the FIA historic class is up until, is it the end of 1990 or 91 now? So the Sierra and Legacy are starting to come into that FIA historic. So those cars are starting to become active again. How many years it'll be until the like of the Impreza or the Escort Cosworth or this, the later Celicas are in that FIA historic group, and I don't know. But at the minute, the Group A cars are just starting to come into the FIA historics. And okay, whether there'll be a market for the likes of the later Group A cars to just compete in normal rallies against the R5s and WRCs, I don't know. But certainly from a historic point of view, I think there'll be a demand for it. As they were touching on there with Gary about the legacies at the weekend that were out, that was fantastic. I loved every bit of that. I was watching the onboard that Mikey put up, and that was just fantastic. How often do you get to see that? I think there is a demand for those cars now, and it'd be great to get something put together to get even if it was only a couple of rallies a year where these cars can run in their proper Group A specification and be competitive.
Definitely, lad. And I suppose then, to change subject slightly, to Spain over the weekend, and we know there's a connection obviously with yourself and Mr. Creighton. What's the extent of that actually? Do you want to kind of reveal it? Is you do look after a little bit, don't you? In fairness, with different things.
Yeah, we do. We've run this car for about 4 or 5 years now, so we sort of took him under the wing in 2017. He was doing his first year in the British Championship, so obviously we had experience in the British Championship before, so he wanted to come over and sort of us to sort of help him run the car and things like that. So that's kind of where it all started. I think at the start I was maybe trying to teach him, but I think now he's teaching me. So that's it's great to be involved. You sort of have to try and hopefully pass on some experience to him, and trying to make sure he doesn't make the same mistakes I made when I was his age. So yeah, he's definitely a great prospect. He's working hard at it, and he's got great pace now. And going out and doing those events isn't easy, and especially this year with COVID and everything else, he's really had to work hard to get everything sorted for him. So yeah, he's really good to see him going out there and doing it now. And Spain, obviously, he had a bad first stage, which kind of ruined the rally for him. But after that, his times were very competitive. So
very good, yeah.
He's getting there now where he's at the stage he can go anywhere and be competitive. He doesn't have to have been there before and had the recce the year before and had the experience. He can just go make a set of pace notes and be on the pace. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and fair play to himself and Liam for bouncing back and putting in those times again. And it was a challenging event. We saw like John Armstrong obviously going for outright honours in the JWRC, and he got caught as well. Like, it's just that type of event it is. Very misfortunate, and he punched in serious times. Like, he was absolutely on it. It was disappointing that it didn't work out from whatever. Josh Mackerlin, phenomenal podium finish. Like, delighted to see the progress that he's made. Like, and that's going on an upward trajectory over the last couple of months. There's mark progress, for want of a better expression there. And again, another big lift. Like,
Yeah, well, it's he's getting the experience at that level, and there's nothing can bring on your pace like it. And he has stepped up to the mark and he's not, he's setting in very competitive times there again on new events he hasn't been to. So you have, I think it's brilliant to see the quality out there of the guys coming from here now. There we had, with William was competitive times, with John was leading the category for a long time, and then obviously Josh with third in WRC3. The guys are now right up there at top level in World Championship rallies. Like you can't get any higher than that. And obviously we have Craig leading the line in the WRC car class. So you kind of have nearly a guy right at the front of every category in WRC, and I don't remember that ever happening before. It's great. It's a great time to be involved in it.
Absolutely. So, like with that, Josh and James Fulton were 17th overall. Gary McElhenney alongside Seb Perez, 26th overall. That's not too shabby either. Fair play. Gary, very universally adaptable. Like he's spectacular on the Donegal Harvest in the Mar2 driving, and then he's not too shabby as a navigator either, as we all know. But Jeff Case, who we had on recently, 31st alongside Pádraig Duffy. Well done to them as well. Aaron Johnson, obviously. Taka had a bit of trouble, but another name. And I suppose last but not least, and I think we've got through everyone at this stage, but last but not least, I think that was Chris Patterson's last event. Now, he has said that before a number of times, and we have seen him again. But sixth alongside Gus Greensmith, I mean, he's brought him on a bit, like, in fairness. He's stabilised things there, and he's just so level-headed, isn't he?
Yeah, well, it's fairly obvious to see. I mean, he's come in there and he has got Gus putting in the performances now. I mean, how can you compete with the sort of experience that Chris has? He's seen and done everything, and we've even from being around rallying, just from obviously with the family connection, he has so much knowledge of every single aspect of the sport. Chris you'd always see Chris at the circuit or an Ulster or some home rally, you're doing a time control, so he does everything. He knows enough about the organization, he knows about the notes, he knows about the competing of it, so how do you find guys with experience? It's worth so much to a driver, especially a young driver, where you're maybe coming up and you're sort of coming up through the ranks, and you need that sort of level-headedness to keep the whole thing on point, really. So he's done a fantastic job with him, and it's great to see that Gus was saying at the end of the event how much it meant to him, and how thankful he was of Chris being there beside him. Just shows you what he's brought to the whole project. So yeah, great to see.
And now, Johnny, last but not least, time for the curveball. There is no curveball, I'm only joking.
Waiting there anyway.
You're primed and ready to go, in fairness. No, listen, I mean, again, thanks for your time. Delighted that you won the championship. You've been very good to me over the last number of months. We must get Crawford on again now, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, have to get him lined up for another go at it.
That went down a tree. I'd say there's serious stories to tell there now, in fairness. Like, I mean, he only told us tip of the iceberg stuff regarding one event, but yeah.
If you want the full story, you have made to make it like a week-long segment or something, an hour every night or something. I don't think you would get through it in one go. Like,
jeez, I think there's worse things on Netflix now. You know what I mean? So we might do all right with that. But just one last comment, actually. Gavin Dempsey has said, great stuff, Kev. Thanks for getting us in touch there, Gavin. To mention, I suppose, our sponsor again, DC Electrical Mechanical Services. Thanks very much to Derek for, looking after us for this particular episode. As always, you can follow us, as we said, on social media at Irish Rally Pod. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications wherever you watch or listen. And we do typically have the audio up on Spotify and Apple half an hour to an hour most of the time, all going well. And you can email us at irishrallypodcast@gmail.com. Johnny Greer, a pleasure as always. Well done once again, and we'll chat soon. Whether it's a Sierra we see you in now, or whether it's your own trusty Citroen, we wish you the very best luck, and thanks again for joining us. All right.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Kev. Great to be on, supporting the whole thing again.
Good stuff. Chat to you soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right.